Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, December 14th, 2024, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a mild high of 66.3 degrees, with a low of 48.3, making it a pleasant winter day in Southern California. Coming up, we'll examine the strategic military shift as thousands of U.S. Marines relocate from Japan to Guam. We'll also break down the Supreme Court case challenging California's authority to regulate vehicle emission standards. Plus, we'll explore the controversy surrounding red dye number 3 and the potential ban of this long-debated food coloring additive in the United States. All this and more, coming up on Alex's News. Our top story this morning focuses on a major military reorganization in the Pacific. The U.S. Marines have begun a historic transfer from Okinawa to Guam, and we have our Pentagon correspondent Ethan Thompson with more details. Ethan?
Thanks, Grace. According to Defense Department officials, this December marks the beginning of a significant relocation that was actually planned way back in 2012. The initial phase has just kicked off, with 100 members of the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force making their way to Guam.
What's the full scope of this relocation, Ethan?
Well, Grace, Pentagon sources indicate that about 9,000 Marines out of the current 19,000 stationed in Okinawa will be moving. Of those, 4,000 are headed to Guam specifically, while the remaining 5,000 will be distributed across Hawaii and various locations in the mainland United States.
And where exactly are these Marines being stationed in Guam?
They're moving to Camp Blaz, Grace. It's a relatively new installation that, according to Marine Corps records, officially opened in January 2022. The Department of Defense has designated it as a strategic hub for the Indo-Pacific region. The price tag for this entire relocation is substantial, $8.7 billion, with Japan contributing $2.8 billion specifically for infrastructure development.
What's behind the decision to choose Guam as the primary location?
According to military strategists, Guam offers several key advantages. As a U.S. territory, it simplifies military operations, and its location between Hawaii and the Philippines makes it strategically valuable. However, it's worth noting that, as reported by local media in Guam, the construction of Camp Blaz has faced significant opposition from environmental groups and indigenous rights activists, particularly regarding impacts on endangered species and Chamorro cultural sites.
And what about the situation in Okinawa? Why is this move happening now?
Japanese government statistics paint a concerning picture, Grace. In 2023 alone, there were 118 criminal cases involving U.S. military personnel in Japan, with 72 of those in Okinawa Prefecture. Even more striking, over the past 50 years from 1972 to 2022, Okinawa recorded 6,163 criminal cases involving U.S. military personnel. These incidents, combined with local complaints about noise and pollution, have been major driving factors in this relocation decision.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. We'll be sure to keep our viewers updated as this historic transfer continues. And now for our second story of the morning. Joining us to discuss a major development in California's fight for cleaner air is our environmental policy reporter, Chloe Martinez. Chloe, the Supreme Court has just agreed to take on a case about California's special authority to set its own vehicle emission standards. What can you tell us about this?
That's right, Grace. According to Cal Matters, this case is specifically focused on whether oil companies and fuel producers have the legal right to challenge a federal waiver that the Environmental Protection Agency granted to California.
Can you help our viewers understand why California has this special authority in the first place?
Of course. The Clean Air Act of 1967 gave California unique permission to set stricter vehicle emissions standards than federal requirements. This was because of California's severe air pollution challenges. NBC News reports that transportation accounts for about 40% of California's atmospheric pollution, and when you include emissions from oil extraction and refining, that number rises to 47% of the state's greenhouse gas emissions.
This case has quite a history, doesn't it? Take us through the recent developments.
Yes, it's been quite a journey. The Obama administration initially granted California a waiver for its 2012 zero-emission car mandate. Then, under President Trump, that waiver was revoked in 2019. When President Biden took office, his administration reinstated the waiver in 2022. Following that, oil companies and 17 Republican-led states sued the EPA. But the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit ruled in favor of the EPA this past April.
What exactly will the Supreme Court be looking at in this case?
According to reporting from Cal Matters, the Supreme Court will only examine whether fuel companies have the legal standing to sue. They won't be reviewing the actual legality of the Biden administration's waiver decision. The challengers include oil industry trade groups and Valero Energy Corp., units that produce biofuels, who claim California's regulations would hurt their business by decreasing demand for their products.
What kind of impact could this have on California's clean air goals?
Well, California's Advanced Clean Cars I regulation aims for all new cars to have zero emissions by 2035. That's about 10 years from now. As of 2024, 17 states and the District of Columbia, representing about 34% of U.S. states, have adopted California's stricter standards. In California's current auto market, internal combustion engines make up 62% of vehicles, while electric vehicles account for 21.4 to 26.4% of new vehicle sales.
Thank you, Chloe, for breaking down this complex issue for us. Here are some other headlines. The United States plans to impose sanctions on Serbia's main gas supplier, which is controlled by Russia's Gazprom Neft. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić announced the sanctions will take effect January 1, 2025, and plans to discuss the matter with both U.S. and Russian officials. In Georgia, former soccer player Mikhail Kavalashvili has been elected president by an electoral college dominated by the ruling Georgian Dream Party. His election has sparked protests due to his anti-Western stance and the controversial nature of recent elections. Top diplomats from the United States, Arab League, Turkey, and other nations met in Jordan's port city of Aqaba to discuss Syria's transition to a new government. The talks focused on ensuring an inclusive political process that preserves Syria's unity and stability. A federal jury in Las Vegas has awarded more than $34 million to a woman who was wrongfully imprisoned for over 15 years. The verdict found that 2 Las Vegas police detectives had fabricated evidence, leading to her conviction. In West Africa, Benin has passed a groundbreaking law granting citizenship to descendants of victims of the transatlantic slave trade. Applicants must be over 18 and prove their ancestry through DNA tests or family records. The initiative acknowledges Benin's historical role in the slave trade, particularly through the port of Ouidah, where more than 1 million Africans were forcibly deported. And now for our third story of the morning. The FDA is taking a closer look at a common food coloring that might soon disappear from store shelves. Here with more details is our consumer affairs reporter, Ethan Martinez. Ethan, what can you tell us about this development?
Grace, the FDA is currently evaluating a potential ban on red dye number 3, also known as erythrocene. According to Food Chain ID, this food coloring is currently found in approximately 3,000 different food products across the United States, including popular items like PEZ candies, candy corn, and certain Valentine's Day heart candies.
What's prompting this review, Ethan?
Well, Grace, as reported by Food Service Director, this review stems from a November 2022 petition filed by multiple organizations, including the Center for Science in the Public Interest and Breast Cancer Prevention Partners, along with 22 other groups. The main concern here is the dye's potential health impacts.
And what exactly are those health concerns?
According to the research findings shared by AOL News, the dye has been linked to cancer in laboratory animals, particularly thyroid tumors. However, it's important to note that while these effects have been observed in rats, there's no clear evidence of cancer causation in humans. There are also additional concerns about possible neurobehavioral effects in children.
Hasn't there been some regulatory action on this already?
Yes, that's correct. The FDA actually banned red dye number 3 from cosmetics and topical drugs back in 1990. However, it's still approved for use in food, supplements, and ingested drugs. Interestingly, California has already taken action, passing legislation that will ban its sale, distribution, and manufacturing starting in 2027. That's about 743 days from now. Other states like Illinois and Washington are considering similar measures.
What's the timeline looking like for the FDA's decision?
According to recent statements from Jim Jones, the FDA's Deputy Commissioner for Human Foods, the agency hopes to act on the petition in the coming weeks. The FDA's newly created Human Foods Program is overseeing this evaluation, and they're accepting feedback on their post-market evaluation processes until January 21, 2025. That's 404 days from now.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. We'll be sure to keep our viewers updated on any developments. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King, with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.